The Ambitious Radio Network. Conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Are you an entrepreneur, startup junkie, or just someone interested in improving their leadership skills? If you're looking to be motivated, inspired, and uncover what it takes to get to the next level, listening to Ambitious Radio will be well worth the investment of your time. We have weekly engaging conversations with today's most influential thought leaders and entrepreneurs as they discuss their successes, failures, tipping points, and other priceless information that you can apply immediately after listening. Now, here's your host, Doug Parker.
All right, welcome back to Ambitious Radio. This is your host, Doug Parker, and I'll tell you what, guys, today we have a fantastic guest. We have John Lee Dumas, and he's the host of EOFire, and he interviews thought leaders, entrepreneurs 7 days per week. Now, that is quite an accomplishment because he's interviewed over 1,500 people and gets over 1.5 million listeners per month. It is unbelievable. This gentleman is a veteran. He's an Army veteran. He's from the Maine area. Help me welcome John Lee Dumas. JLD, how are you, sir?
Doug, I am fired up. I'm ready to be here. And yes, Maine, I love it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I know you've moved around a little bit. You know, you started out in Maine, and I know you were in San Diego for a while. But, you know, just tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe kind of what I didn't get in the intro, where you're from, what you're all about.
Yeah, so just a real quick rundown. I did grow up in the state of Maine, went to college on an Army ROTC scholarship. So post-college, I spent 8 years as an officer in the U.S. Army, 4 active, 4 in the reserves. And then after my little time in the military, I decided to try law school, which I hated, so I quit. I tried corporate finance, which I died a slow death in the cubicle, so I quit after 1 year. And then commercial real estate, both in San Diego, back in Maine, a little stint in New York City. And it was 6 years that I just described right there of like quote unquote civilian world, and none of it worked for me. I wasn't happy. I wasn't successful. I just wasn't finding my thing. And it wasn't until 2012, coming up on 5 years ago now, when I had the aha moment, the idea to launch EOFire, which is a daily podcast where I interview today's most successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. I've had people like Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, Gary Vaynerchuk, just an awesome cast. And now that, we're almost 5 years in, we're over 1,600 episodes to date, over 40 million listens total, and it's a multi-million-dollar a year business net profit. So it's been fun growing it, and we're having a blast.
Man, I'll tell you what, when I first started working on this project for Ambitious Radio, we were just going to do a radio show here local in Dallas, and then I thought, you know what, I'm already doing all the work. It can't be that much more to package it up and podcast it out. But I was like, I don't know anything about it, so I'm going to start, Googling and figuring out what I can figure out about podcasting. And man, your imprint is on this industry like none other. And so I tuned in and started listening, and then it was like addictive. I mean, literally it was, 7 days a week. I'm listening to every show that's coming out. And, it was really, really some cool stuff. And, let's just kind of, talk a little bit about it, because you've been there kind of from the beginning when there wasn't as much going on. And I know that you are very public about so many things that you do. But can you tell us just a little bit about maybe some of the obstacles that you ran into when you kind of first started doing this?
Yeah, there was a lot of obstacles, and kind of to your point that you made earlier is, guys, if you're going to create content, like Doug is creating, like I'm creating, why not repurpose it? So I think it was great that Doug went out there and found other mediums to share the same exact content that he was already sharing on just different platforms. I mean, that's just getting out there to more ears. So that's a great strategy for anybody to implement. But back in 2012, I'll tell you, it just wasn't as easy to listen to a podcast as it is now. I mean, iTunes interface has improved tenfold. Now you have iHeartRadio that's crushing podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Stitcher, Google Play has entered the mix. I mean, it is really super simple on your smartphone now to download your favorite app. I even have my own app. I created the EOFire app because I just wanted to make it so simple for people like yourself, Doug, that just liked consuming my podcast on that day-to-day basis. So it's so much easier now for a consumer to listen to podcasts, and that's important. That's why Uber won, because it's easy for the consumer. That's why Instagram won, because they just made it easy to take great photos and just do a couple filters and some letters and words, and then they can just print it and share it with the world. I mean, that's why companies win. And so when you can make things simple for the consumer, you win. So that was a struggle back in 2012, and just letting people know about this form of podcasting. Still kind of an unknown word. It's getting a little more notoriety now that things like Serial went viral, which is a podcast about, a criminal case. And you have people from all the way from Hillary Clinton to Snoop Dogg to Shaquille O'Neal launching podcasts. I mean, if you have any kind of influence in this world, and whatever that word influence means to you, or if you have any desire to grow some authority, podcasting is a great way to share your voice, your message, and to have it resonate with others who resonate with your message. So those are a couple of the struggles that we were facing, Doug, but it's getting easier.
Sure. And you work on so many different projects, and we're going to get into some of those in the next couple segments, but you're interviewing 7 days a week, which is something that's unique. I know that a lot of people, like my show, for instance, is a 1 day a week show, and there's a lot of people that do a 5 day a week show. But what was it that made you kind of settle on, I'm going to do something 7 days per week?
Well, I think that you have to, number one, say, what am I going to do that's different in this world? Like, what am I going to add value in, but then also has that unique flair that's going to make people sit up and say, you know what? I've always liked this, but I can see that it was missing that. And that's what John or Doug or whoever is filling in that void. That's what they're bringing to the table that nobody was before. And that's what I personally, as a consumer, because remember, I was a consumer of podcasts for 2 years before I ever even thought about making one. I was saying to myself every day, geez, I wish that there was this daily podcast that interviews successful entrepreneurs, because those are my favorite shows. And I drive to work 5 days a week. I hit the gym. I'm doing this stuff. Like, I would love to have a show that was every single day had a new episode waiting for me. So scratch your own itch, find those voids that are out there, and then serve those voids in a meaningful and powerful way. And I saw the opportunity within podcasting to do a daily podcast, because a lot of people said you couldn't because you get burnt out, you would run out of guests, XYZ. But like, I knew that was BS, because I mean, come on, it's people have been doing radio talk shows forever that have guests every single day of the week, and the list goes on. So I knew that wasn't going to be an issue for me, and I knew that I could bring in my military training, that discipline that we're going to talk about a little bit later in more depth. But I could take that discipline and structure and get automations and systems that would work, that would allow me to have a daily show that wouldn't consume my life. And today, fast forward 4 years, Doug, coming up again on 5 years, I've got it down pat to where now I only spend 2 days a month recording my interviews. I do 15 interviews on the first Monday of the month and 15 interviews on the first Tuesday of the month. Then I'm done for interviewing people for EOFire for the rest of the month. Those other 28, 29 days, they're mine now. I take them back and I do other things with them, like write books, communities, have fun, go on interviews like your show. So there's great ways to batch and to be very productive in your world.
I'll share this with you. Anybody that has signed up for my show, if you decide that you want to take the information you've gotten from me and how I do what I do, trust me, if you steal it from me, you're stealing it twice. Because when I was on your show on episode 1377, I went through in the sign up process, and I was looking at all the different things of what you were doing and those processes. And it made my life so much easier instead of just having to send an email and this and that. There's like a sign-up page. You go through, you answer the questions. It automates everything through Schedule Once. And that has saved me so much time, just the investment of going through. And plus, I got to be on the show and everything else. But, yeah, you've done a great job with that. Now, you mentioned, with the rest of your time, you get to write books and some of those things. And I know you've got the the Entrepreneur on Fire, Conversations with Visionary Leaders. That book is out there. But in addition to your book, are there any other books that you recommend?
Yeah, so there are some great books out there. And are you looking for just general entrepreneurial books?
Yeah, just some of your favorite books. I mean, just whatever you recommend.
I would say basically The Slight Edge is the book that I like to point anybody towards that's looking to maybe start getting to figure out what it looks like to be an entrepreneur on a day-to-day basis, because I love that book for a number of reasons, because so many people think they have to come in day one and just start knocking out of the park and accomplishing these big tasks and having these big wins. And that's not how successful businesses are built. Successful businesses are built one small, tiny step, increment, improvement at a time. That's it. And the book, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, really goes into that. And I think a great follow-up to that book is the mentee of Jeff Olson, who is Darren Hardy, who is also the founder or the editor-in-chief for a long time of Success Magazine. And he wrote the book, The Compound Effect, which just took all the principles from The Slight Edge and showed you how to take it to the next level. So those are two great books. I think those are two great starting points, and reading them in the order of the Slight Edge and then following up with a Compound Effect. It's a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually just went through Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect twice.
Oh,
I liked
cool.
it so much the first time that I went back in with my whole team and I was like, hey guys, we need to go through this as a management team. And and we're finishing up the last chapter next week in our kind of weekly conversations. So great books. I can definitely endorse those as well. Now, you mentioned you're right on the cusp of 5 years. Over the last 5 years, is there something maybe that you've changed your mind on, that you're diametrically opposed to how you thought about it before? Maybe you thought this way and now you've got a little experience in life and you're like, whoa, now I think this way. Anything like that comes to mind?
Absolutely. I thought that I had to scale and leverage everything immediately and continue to do that until everything in my life was like that. I mean, you mentioned, obviously, Doug, that is an important factor of my life, is how I've scaled and automated and leveraged and created systems around the booking process for my shows and stuff. That has to happen in many areas of your life to free things up, but you can't do that with every part of your life. Now, let me explain. I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get to the point where I'm just going to be too busy to like interact with my listeners one-on-one because, we had 2 million listens for the show last month. I mean, that's a massive number. And I figured that I would just get to the point where I'd have to say, I got to step back from just, addressing the one-to-one and then go to just the one-to-many. Now, my podcast is the one-to-many. And one thing that I've really learned and definitely absorbed over the past 5 years is that one-to-one can never completely disappear. And I like to quote, do things that don't scale. In fact, just an hour and a half before we jumped on this call, Doug, I went through a list and I called people one by one who have joined Podcasters Paradise this month. Every time someone joins my podcasting community, they get an email on like day 3 or day 4 that says, hey, can we chat? And if they want to chat with me one-on-one, they fill out this quick form with their phone number, and then I call them on a Saturday between 1 and 2 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, which is here in Puerto Rico. I just make phone calls every single Saturday to people who have joined my Podcasters Paradise community, who have invested in myself and in Kate. And I thank them personally. It's a personal one-on-one call. I thank them. Really quick, cool story from that is I found a woman today. I was chatting with her. She lives on West 74th Street in New York City, which is two doors down from my best friend in college who just started his podcast. Now they're going to go out and have coffee tomorrow because they just can, because I connected them and now they're just like neighbors. They never knew it. It's like so cool what happens when you take things down, when you don't try to scale everything, when you have the one-on-one conversations. I always ask the question, how'd you find me? Like, how do you find out about me? And I just hear the greatest responses. Some people will just say, I have no idea, which is funny. But some people will really be able to give me that breadcrumb path. And I can find those answers and amplify the things that are working for me and my business and continue to ramp those up. And if I think something's working, I'm never hearing people finding about me that way, then maybe I got to tone it down and spend my time elsewhere.
Sure. No, that's great information. And as we kind of wrap up this segment, I want to ask you about personal habits that have contributed most to your success, and then we'll transition right into the next segment. But can you just share a little bit about I think there's maybe 3 things I've researched and found about you that are really just number 1, 2, and 3 to help you in your success?
Well, listen, I look at my success over the past 5 years, me, an individual who, just has one business partner, Kate, business partner and life partner, and, a handful of virtual assistants around the world. And I've grown it into a multi-million-dollar a year business net profit. So I'm doing some things right. So, I have a ton of weaknesses like everybody in the world has, but I know what my 3 core strengths are. And those 3 things are productivity, discipline, and focus. I've figured that out. I've decided to focus my energies on that. And that's where I win. Those 3 skills, those 3 traits.
Unbelievable. And that is great information for our ambitious listeners. You can always go back and check out anything that we're talking about here with John Lee Dumas on ambitiousradio.com on the show notes. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, tune in after a brief word from our sponsors, and we'll be talking more to JLD, John Lee Dumas, about his career pursuits and really what's coming up next as being an ambitious entrepreneur right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Here's another RepairMyCreditNow.com story.
Home ownership. It's the American dream. It's a goal you've always hoped to achieve. You've spent countless weekends looking for the perfect house on the ideal block. The rates are low and you've saved enough for the down payment. Unfortunately, now the mortgage company says there's a little hitch. Okay, let's be honest. It's a gigantic, gargantuan hitch. It's your credit. And it looks like your estimated house payment will be a lot more.
www.repairmycreditnow.com.
Hello, this is Doug Parker with RepairMyCreditNow.com. Do you have less than perfect credit, a repo, maybe some late payments, a collection account? Are they being reported accurately? Studies show that over 70% of Americans have inaccuracies on their credit reports. Where do you fit in? Go to RepairMyCreditNow.com for your free credit report evaluation. And remember, your credit is your future. If you want to get started now, log on now. RepairMyCreditNow.com.
RepairMyCreditNow.com. www.repairmycreditnow.com.
All right, welcome back to Ambitious Radio, and today we've got John Lee Dumas, JLD, Entrepreneur on Fire. This guy's got so many things going on. He is just knocking it out of the park, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit about. We talked a little about him personally earlier. Now we're going to really get down to business, and he said, right before the break, that there's 3 things that have contributed most to his success: productivity, discipline, and focus. So, how would you say that those things have helped you?
So I look at my life, and again, I've had weaknesses for years, and I've been able to improve upon some of those. I'll never be able to get rid of all of my weaknesses. But the question I want listeners to ask themselves is, do you really want to work hard on your weaknesses? Because you're just going to become okay at something. And like, nobody wants okay. Like, should we spend our time becoming okay at something we're bad at? Or should we spend our time becoming great at something that we're already really good at? And my response to that, honestly, is the latter. Like, I think if we can spend time getting great at what we're already really good at, then we're really going to be able to make our mark on the world and share that message, that voice, that mission with the world. And so when I looked at those 3 things for me, which were productivity, discipline, and focus, I said, how can I continue to improve those things? So, Doug, looking at those individually, starting off with productivity, what are you as an individual producing of quality? Like, that word producing is so important. And, this is something that I have really been able to excel at as an entrepreneur. I am a incredibly productive machine. I do a daily podcast. I write emails to my audience, social media. I'm on other shows all the time. I'm writing books. I'm doing webinars. I have so many things going on. I am so incredibly productive. Every one of these things is very strategic in what I say yes to, because it has to remain productive. So what I like to say to this very quickly, that a lot of people can relate with, is most people wake up in the morning and they do OPA. Now, what does OPA stand for? Other people's agenda. They get up and they're on other people's agenda all day long because they open up their inbox and they're putting out other people's fires, because they jump on Facebook or Instagram, and it's just, the life is no longer theirs. They're putting their life in the hands of other people. They're reacting. So they're not producing high quality content. So it's so key that you take the beginning part of your day before the day takes over you, and you just produce quality content. When you do that, when you focus on that, you will be a productivity machine, and it will change your life. It will change every single day, and then it will change every single week. And if you read the compound effect, you realize weeks change months, months change years, and then before you know it, you're like, how did I get here, in a good way? So productivity, Doug, is huge.
Yes, sir. Now, let's talk about income, because I know you publish income reports and those types of things, but how do you generate the majority of your revenue right now?
So the majority of our revenue kind of comes from 4 legs. And, you mentioned before that we do publish our income. So we're very transparent about that. We just love it being out there in public, because we wanted to inspire other people to see what's working for us as podcasters and as online entrepreneurs, and potentially emulate some of those things. I mean, we're all standing upon the shoulders of giants, but we also want to share with people what's not working, what we fail in, so people can avoid this and making the same pitfalls and mistakes that we make month to month to month as we continue to improve and iterate and try new things, etc. So on that note, the 4 biggest revenue streams for us would be, number 1, Podcasters Paradise. This is our podcasting community where we have now over 3,000 members who are part of this community. We teach people how to create, grow, and monetize their podcasts. We have over $4 million in revenue from that in the past 3 years. So that's been an incredible revenue stream for us, and it is going forward. When I do webinars every single week, it's for podcasting, driving people in towards Podcasters Paradise. Sponsorships for the show. I have sponsors for every single one of my podcasts. And since my show gets more than 2 million listens a month, I'm making over $2,000 a day from sponsorship revenue alone. So that is typically on a month-to-month basis over $60,000, because sometimes we even have what are called post rolls at the end of the show, which will make that show even more of a revenue stream. So around $60,000 per month we're generating from sponsorship revenue alone. My book, The Freedom Journal, that I launched last year in January of 2016 on Kickstarter, it became the 6th most funded publishing campaign of all time on Kickstarter, doing $453,000 in just 33 days, and has continued to just crush it revenue-wise. The Freedom Journal now has over 16,000 of the journals sold, and consistently does between $25,000 to $35,000 every single month in revenue. And then we do a lot of joint ventures. I will partner up with people that have products and services in areas that I don't offer, but that are very valuable for my listeners, for my audience, which are entrepreneurs, sidepreneurs, small business owners. And if people convert into that product, into that service, into that community, then we'll get a portion of that sale. So those joint ventures. So those are the big four.
Cool. Now, you've done so many interviews now. Last I had researched, it was like 1,500, but I know you just said 1,600. So
yeah.
With that being said, I'm sure every episode is like one of your children, so you're not supposed to have a favorite one. But if there's anything that kind of stands out, are there ones that you really enjoyed, or were there certain content you brought home from? It's like, I really enjoyed interviewing this person, and who was that and why?
Interviewing Tony Robbins was kind of a milestone, because he was somebody that's, before I even got into entrepreneurship, like I knew of him and I saw what he was doing, and I thought it was really inspiring. So it was just, he's been somebody that I've just known of for a very long time and admired and looked up to. So having that one-on-one conversation was super cool. I love talking with Sally Hogshead. I've had her on the show a couple times, and she's just a really cool woman. She is always ranked in the top, usually number one in the world for speaking from stage for women. And I've seen her speak multiple times. She just crushes it every single time. So it's been really great building a relationship with her and just kind of seeing how she's built her business in a very different area than I have. And, from Barbara Corcoran on Shark Tank to Brian Tracy, just, somebody whose books I've read over and over again. It's really been fun interviewing people. And like you said, I mean, having done over 1,600, I value every single person. And I just, I really enjoy having the conversations with people that are making $2,000 a month, but doing something they love, like making soap out of goat's milk. I mean, that was a great interview that people love, because, hey, not everybody wants to be on Shark Tank like Barbara Corcoran, but some people just want to, have a nice at-home business so they can make revenue and have fun and spend time with their family.
It makes perfect sense. It really does. And actually, I saw Sally about 3 or 4 months ago, and really great from the stage, and great information.
So
all of her personality training and all the different things that she's doing, it really is impressive. So I'm looking forward to having her on the show here pretty soon as well. Now, when you go through these different interviews, or maybe when you first got started, did you have any fears, or were you one of those kind of guys that's like, I'm just going to jump in?
Terrified, paralyzed with fear. In fact, August 15th, 2012 was the date I was supposed to launch Entrepreneur on Fire. And the day came and I just was too scared to launch. And so I delayed it 5 weeks before I launched. And, it was just the imposter syndrome that was just telling me, who are you to launch a podcast? Like, you've never launched a podcast before. You're not going to be good on air, and all these doubts and fears. And it pushed, again, I pushed it back 5 weeks, and I would have pushed it back more had I not had a mentor. My mentor essentially said, if you don't launch your podcast, I will fire you. So I was kind of had my feet to the fire, and I pushed the publish button. And that's why it's important to surround yourself with mentors, with a mastermind, with people that like, and trust. Because as Jim Rohn says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
So if you could go back and give yourself kind of one piece of advice at any point in your lifetime, what would that be, and at what point in your life would you have given it to yourself?
It would be every month on the month. I would just say, dude, chill out. Like, just relax. Like, it's growing up, it's so hard to realize it. But, we just think that now is the time and we have to be like, have this great career, or this great job, or this great this, or this great that. And like, life's a marathon. Like, it feels like it goes by fast, like when you look back over the years, but it's a marathon. Every day is a full day, is 24 hours. You have so much time. Just realize that and just make sure that you're using it wisely and relax and just don't put so much pressure on everything and just create and just have fun and, be willing to get knocked down 8 times and get up the 9th. I mean, that's what I would say to myself. Chill out.
Yeah, that's great advice, because in this world it's always stressful. There's this 24-hour news cycle and all kinds of crazy stuff. So that really, really is great stuff. Now, when you're talking about growing, you mentioned kind of a mentor in the past, but at this time, what do you do to grow now?
I consume content on a limited basis. I do believe that, as we start to become more successful and as we start to, really get the business side of things down and starting to generate more revenue, we need to ramp up our production and ramp down our consumption, because it's a scale. Like, you can only produce so much and consume so much at the same day, meaning like it's like 100% you have. And so when I started off, I was maybe producing 10% and consuming 90%. As I was in the learning stage. But over the last 4+ years, that scale has been going the other way. So now I'm actually at the point where I produce with 90% of my time, and I only use 10% of my time to consume. But I do love consuming content. I listen to podcasts all the time. I listen to Gary Vaynerchuk's Daily V show. I get a kick out of it. Like, he's building a business I would never in a million years want to build, but I respect his mind as an entrepreneur. I respect his hustle, and I really agree with a lot of things he has to say. And just because he's not building the business that I would want for myself, I can learn a lot from how he's doing what he does, and it's really fascinating. So that's me when it comes to consuming content.
Yeah, great stuff for our ambitious listeners. And guys, I tell you what, if you like what you hear and you want to get updated via text, you can text the word ambitious to 69922. Standard messaging rates do apply. Next, we'll be talking more to John Lee Dumas about what ambitious things he's doing now and what's next on Ambitious Radio. Hey, ambitious listeners, you hear us interviewing entrepreneurs all the time, and there's a common theme. They want to be more productive and improve their communication. As an ambitious entrepreneur, you're always on the go. So turn your mobile phone into a business phone system with Grasshopper, the entrepreneur's phone system. The Ambitious Radio Network recently partnered with Grasshopper to offer our listeners a special discount. Log on to ambitiousradio.com and click on the Grasshopper banner in the bottom right-hand corner. Get a new business number or keep your current one. Sound professional with a main greeting and multiple extensions that forwards callers to your mobile phone or others in your organization. Get a toll-free number or local number for your business with multiple extensions. Set up each extension with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get your voicemails emailed to you as an audio attachment or transcribed an email. Keep business calls separate from your personal calls. Plans start at $12 a month with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Remember to click on the Grasshopper banner at ambitiousradio.com for a special discount for our listeners. Join the over 150,000 small business owners that have stayed connected with Grasshopper. See how Grasshopper works? It's the entrepreneur's phone system. Turn the world into your office. All right, welcome back to Ambitious Radio. This is your host, Doug Parker, and I've got John Lee Dumas here with me today. And this guy is a master at creating content and just great information. I've got the Freedom Journal sitting right here with me, but he has another project he's working on and really excited about. John, tell us what's up next for you.
Well, first off, thanks for having a physical copy of the Freedom Journal, Doug. I mean, here we are in this virtual age where everybody wants things on the app and SaaS and, in the cloud and stuff. And that's why a year ago when I went to launch the Freedom Journal, people were like, why are you doing a physical product? But I knew the power of having that physical product. And, the Freedom Journal is a beautiful hardcover faux leather gold embossed journal that you're just proud to have on your desk, to have in your nightstand, to kind of keep you there, keep you motivated to accomplish your number one goal in 100 days, which is what it's meant to do. Accomplish your number one goal in 100 days. So it did just that. It continues to sell incredibly well every single day. Then what inspired me to do this next project was people were coming to me and saying, okay, John, now that I've accomplished my number one goal, I feel like I have all this momentum. What do I do with all this momentum? I'm excited. And I was like, well, that's great. Well, I can tell you what I did when I accomplished my number one goal, which was EOFire. I got to work. I got to work being productive, I got to work being disciplined, and I got to work being focused on bringing my business forward. And that just got me thinking, wow, like these things can't come fairly easily to me. And I've worked on them hard over the past number of years that have maybe become better at all these things. Let me even take that to the next level and create a guide, a step-by-step tool that people can follow to become masters of productivity, masters of discipline, and masters of focus in 100 days. So I spent a year, all of 2016, nosing books, doing my research, finding out all the different things about productivity, discipline, and focus. And on January 23rd, so just this past Monday of 2017, I officially launched the Mastery Journal over on Kickstarter, tagline being Master Productivity, Discipline, and Focus in 100 Days. And again, it's a Kickstarter campaign, so if you want to go check it out, it's at themasteryjournal.com. You can just head over there. It'll take you right to the Kickstarter page. We have a beautiful video that I shot on site here in Puerto Rico that describes all what the Mastery Journal is. The whole sales page there just has a lot of great information. And, we have different reward levels that you can snag if you would like to, including combo packs. If you don't even have the Freedom Journal yet, you can get both the Mastery and Freedom Journal in one combo pack for a really cool package. So we have some really cool things going on there. And one other thing I'd like to mention with this, Doug, is we've partnered with an amazing charity called Pencils of Promise, as we did for the Freedom Journal. And last year with the Freedom Journal, we ended up donating over $75,000 on behalf of Freedom Journal supporters to build schools in developing countries through Pencils of Promise. We're doing the same thing this year with the Mastery Journal. So if you do decide to go over and support the Mastery Journal, you're giving yourself the gift of mastering productivity, discipline, and focus in 100 days. And you're also giving the gift of education to those less fortunate.
Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And I think whenever I got the Freedom Journal, I think it was called a fire pack. I think is maybe how you explained it. But I think it was 20 of them and got them out to other people so they could do stuff with it. And I'm sure, that's the same packages or packages similar to that are available as well.
Oh, yeah.
For this.
And real quick, Doug, how cool is it when you were able to gift those Freedom Journals to other people? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I just know from other people sharing with me their experiences and me doing it with others, just how cool it was for you to give the gift, so to speak, of someone accomplishing their number one goal in 100 days. So it was really cool that people do go out and buy these packs and gift them to their friends, their family, their loved ones, and it just really makes a difference.
It really does, and you don't have to put any words in my mouth. I'm telling you, I'm holding it right now, and this thing is, in this day and age, books, a lot of times that come out nowadays, they're, just on paperback or whatever the case is.
On-demand printing, it's just like the same thing.
Yeah, this thing is beautiful, and like I said, I can't wait to get the Master Journal as well. Now, as you go through it and you make these decisions, obviously you decided to partner with the Pencils of Promise and on that project, and it's always good to be giving back, because the reality is, we talk about it at church all the time. Our pastor will say, look, sometimes you're given more than enough, and it's not always just for you. Okay, sometimes
right.
it's for somebody else, and obviously you believe in that mentality, and so how did you decide on Pencils of Promise? How did you get connected with that group?
So I actually interviewed Adam Braun, who's the founder. He was on my show. One of my friends recommended him, and so he was on EOFire episode 900 and something, I believe. You can just actually go to my site, and under the search bar, you can just type Adam Braun, Braun, and you can listen to that episode. And I was inspired. I was like, as a host, I still listen, just like, Doug, you're listening right now. We listen to our guests, and I was like, wow, this is an amazing story. And Adam, he went to Guatemala, and he bent down in this road, and he asked this child who was like 4 or 5 years old, like, hey, if you could have anything in the world that you wanted, like, what would you want? And, he expected the kid to be like saying like a bicycle or this or that. And the kid looked at him and said, a pencil. And Adam's like, what? Like, why would you want a pencil? He's like, because I want to write. I want to learn how to read. The kid just at 4 or 5 years old just like knew instinctually that this was such an important gift that he was not going to be given the opportunity to have. And so Adam's heart broke, and he created this incredible foundation called Pencils of Promise. And like I said, we donated $75,000 a year, $75,000 last year to it, and we're hoping to at least match that, if not go over that this year, and just continue to build schools in developing countries. And it's an amazing community.
Now, as you go through the process of determining, who you're going to work with and what projects you're going to work on, do you have a process for that? Or I think you had mentioned it, and I don't know if it was in this conversation or if it was in one of in prepping for it, I was watching one of the videos, but is there a process that you follow to make that determination?
As far as what? Well,
as what's to work on next, because what happens is we got the bright shiny object, and you'll get distracted, or not. I'm not saying you will, but I know I get distracted with stuff all the time.
Oh, I get distracted. I'm a human being. I get distracted, and so for me, like, it really does come down to journaling. Part of my morning routine is meditation and journaling, and journaling just always allows me to get my thoughts on paper and allows me to prioritize things and to see like where I want to be spending my time and where I think I can actually make the biggest impact. And again, biggest impact is one thing, but at the same time, how can I also make the individual one-on-one impact as well? So I kind of weigh those two things at the same time. For me, it's always one big project. Like it was EOFire, my podcast. Then it was Podcasters Paradise. And then it was Webinar on Fire, our webinar community. Then it was the Freedom Journal. Now it's the Mastery Journal. And then I'm going to be publishing a traditional book after the Mastery Journal launch is over, and that'll be my sole, focus for my big project, my overall number one goal. So I always like to have these 3, 100-day, I was going to say 3 months, but I meant I like to have these like 100-day moving goals that I'm always working towards. And hey, I don't always finish my biggest goals in 100 days, but I'll tell you what, like that just allows me the opportunity to be that much further along than I would have been not having the structure, and then just continue it on and see it through by day like 120, 150.
So when you talk about journaling, I mean, we all hear about journaling and, obviously you write in a journal, but can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Do you just write it down? Do you go back and review it in previous days, or how does that actually work for you?
Yeah, that was where I struggled with journaling for years, because I would oftentimes just open up a blank Moleskine and just start writing, and it just didn't work for me. I was just like, I feel weird. Like I just don't know what to write. Like I'm just a structured person. Like I like to be guided. I like people to hold my hands in a way and like show me the path and just kind of follow orders. I guess it might be the military person in me. I don't know. So that's kind of really where the idea for these journals that I've now created came from, both the Freedom Journal and the Mastery Journal, which, we're building out a brand, an umbrella brand called the Success Journals, where these journals are underneath those, because I just love and operate best when I'm actually opening up a journal and it says, okay, say something you're most grateful about today. And you start with, with a mindset of gratefulness and a mindset of abundance with that affirmation. And then, okay, what is your number one focus today? Boom, you write it out. Then boom, you just follow the guidance, the step-by-step guidance of the Freedom Journal until you are complete for that day. And then you have the nightly recap. And before you know it, you're just executing, you're just following the guidance. And then day 100 comes, you're like, I just actually accomplished this number one goal. Like this goal has been plaguing me for years, and I just did it in 100 days. I mean, we see that comment all the time in our private Facebook community for Freedom Journal owners. It's so exciting. It's so amazing, the breakthroughs that we see, all because we just give people the little guidance, and then they just follow it from there.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us, because the reality is, so many people think of journaling, they can just get out a spiral notebook or something. And for many, that very well may work.
It works for some people, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like you. I mean, I can just write on it. It's like, so I want to work hard today. You know what I mean? I'm going to do this. So there really is a lot of great structure in the book, and that's something that you'll continue to build upon. And, one other question in this segment that I'd love to just see, and I didn't ask you this in the pre-show or anything else, so if it catches you off guard, no worries. But if you were going to do, let's say a TED Talk, but it wasn't to do with podcasting, because I know that's what you are like an absolute rock star on, but would there be a topic you would like to do a TED Talk on?
Yeah, I'll tell you, after doing 1,600 interviews for my own show and close to 1,000 on other shows, it's hard to catch me off guard, Doug. So ask any questions you want, my friend. We can do this all day long. But, the thing that I would really focus in on if I had that opportunity to do a TED Talk, which I really do, by the way, I hope I can do someday, but it would be this whole mindset of this Albert Einstein quote that I am just absolutely passionate about. It's try not to become a person of success, but rather a person of value. And I would do my TED Talk on the whole fact that people who win in this world are focused primarily, first and foremost, and sometimes exclusively on providing value, and then success follows and finds them. But when you flip it on its head, which 99% of people do, and try to find success, and they put the value thing off to the side, that success is elusive. That was me for 6 years. So I would really get into the TED Talk about how You can provide free, valuable, consistent content like we do, Doug, on, audio, like some people do on video, like other people do on websites or blogs or, any number of ways. But you have to do that free, valuable, consistent content, add the value to the world, build an audience that's going to allow you to ask that audience, what are you struggling with? Listen to their answers, and then provide solutions to their pain points, their obstacles, their challenges, their struggles, and then you win.
Great information, ambitious times, and I'll tell you what, we could not do it without our great guest, John Lee Dumas. He is knocking it out of the park, and we also couldn't do it without our sponsors. So we're going to take a brief break and hear a little bit from our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with John Lee Dumas of EOFire, and we'll talk more about how he recharges his ambitious body, mind, and spirit right here on the Ambitious Radio Network.
Could you lose your career because of your faith? Could your pastor be sued because of his sermons? Can students and teachers be punished because of what they believe about God or what they say? Can the government or even your employer force you to violate your beliefs? Get the answers, and if necessary, legal protection from First Liberty Institute. This is Kelly Shackelford, president of First Liberty. We're the nation's largest legal organization dedicated exclusively to restoring religious freedom in America. In fact, First Liberty's nationwide network of top attorneys win over 90% of their cases. We've won at the Supreme Court all the way down to the local schools. Visit firstliberty.org to learn more about how First Liberty is protecting religious freedom for all Americans in the workplace, public schools, your church, the military, and more. That's firstliberty.org.
All right, this is your host, Doug Parker of the Ambitious Radio Network, and it is hard to believe that we are already on the last segment. John talked in the last segment that, we could go on for hours, and I'm sure that we could, and I would really enjoy it, but I want to be respectful of his time. And with that being said, let's talk about, we've talked about how ambitious you are, all the things you got going, all the systems you've put in place, and how you're maximizing so many things. But the bottom line is, your brain's always running. You're doing things. And, we want to talk about how do you recharge your ambitious body, mind, and spirit?
Recharging is important. And again, for me, recharging is number one. It starts with sleep. I'm a huge proponent of sleep. I get at least 8 hours of sleep a night. Those people that claim they can run off 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I know you're out there. I know you're listening right now. I don't believe you. I think you're headed for burnout. I mean, our body needs it. It requires it. I'm adamant about getting it. And then, I make sure that I have a morning routine. And that morning routine recharges me every single day. It's exercise. It's, getting up and actually doing a little bit of, deep breathing, standing up, but then also sitting down and continuing that deep breathing through meditation, journaling. So again, I'm focused in the morning of taking care of myself. Good night's sleep, getting in some exercise, not going crazy. I'm not doing like a 10-mile run. I'm doing like a nice little 2,000-meter row in my rowing machine, getting the blood flowing, then sitting down, doing the meditation, doing the journaling, setting my day up for success. That's what gets me grounded, and that's also what keeps me from getting burnt out. That's what keeps me recharged and allows me to execute at a high level every single day. I mean, Doug, let's be honest to your listeners. It is Saturday right now, and people were just like, would be like, what are you doing on a Saturday? I'm like, what do you mean? Every day is a Saturday for me, and I'm doing what I love right now. I mean, if you choose the right path, you're always getting recharged. I mean, I'm going to be more charged up after this interview with Doug than I was charged up before, because I'm doing something I enjoy doing, talking about great topics, hopefully inspiring a couple people to take action and do some cool things. It's just fun.
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I actually got a guy that called me today. He looked up the show and somehow got connected and found a number for me and called me and was telling me how just charged up he was after listening to one of our previous guests. And it was a deal where he just found it on the internet and listened to it. And, that got me charged up. You're talking about, having a situation where, you wonder, hey, who all's listening and what's going on? Is it really making a difference? And, the different things. But it really does make a difference whenever you're getting this feedback and those kind of things. And when you're doing things you love, so many people, they back into whatever the job is that they've got. They may have even went to school for it, and then they get out and they realize it's not really what I I like or I really what I love. But I've gone to school for 4 or 5 years, and I've got $100,000 in student loan debt, so I might as well do it. But you got to do things you love, and you talked about that in the beginning of the show, how you served in the military, and by the way, thank you for that, because I'm telling you, to all of our veterans out there, the bottom line is that you guys defending our country makes it possible for entrepreneurs like you and me to be able to do the things that we do. So I definitely didn't want the show get through the show without letting you know that. But it just makes a huge impact on on the lives of people. And you got out of the military, you bounced around, you tried a couple of different things, and then you had this epiphany that, hey, here's what I'm going to do. And then you said you got paralyzed by fear, but you pushed through and you made it happen. So, I encourage everybody, find things that you love to do, because it's, you're going to work 40, 50 hours a week at something. It might as well be some stuff that you love. So now let's talk about, travel and vacation. I recently noticed that you are now in Puerto Rico. Now, is that a permanent move? Is that a long-term vacation? What's going on there?
It's a permanent move, as permanent as a life of a location-independent and financially independent entrepreneur is. I mean, Kate and I lived in San Diego for a number of years. We loved it, but we were ready for some adventure. So we said, hey, the Caribbean is beckoning, and we found a great place here in Puerto Rico, and we settled down, and a great little community called Palmas del Mar here in Puerto Rico. And we've been here since May 1st, and, we're going to be here for a couple years. We're committed to the area. We're enjoying it, and we'll see, maybe longer. I mean, who knows? But so far so good, and we're down here in Puerto Rico, loving life. Cool.
Now, technically, that is is that a
U.S. territory?
Territory. Okay. So, is there any kind of tax benefits, or you just like being there?
Massive tax benefits. There's something called Act 20, which if anybody just wants to Google Puerto Rico Act 20, you'll be able to learn a lot about it, and it's a great economic stimulus package for this island, which is going through some struggles, which, to be frank, every place really in the world is at some level. And it's a great opportunity for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and the reason why I said I thought there might be something, and I'll look up that Act 20. The reality is I'm a tax-paying, American-loving, kind of guy, but I don't want to pay any unnecessary taxes, and so it's always good to hear, what's out there and what's available to people, and they put those things in place. Go ahead.
You still pay taxes here, no doubt. It's just not quite as much as one would in California.
Right. Well, and I'm in Texas, so we even pay less than they do in California. But anyway, man, well, this is just great information, and as we always do, as we're kind of wrapping up the show the last couple minutes here, if someone wanted to interact with you, how's the best way to do that? Maybe a couple nuggets if they're thinking about doing a podcast. I know you've got Podcasters Paradise. Can you just kind of wrap up and tell us a little bit about that and how that helps folks?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm great via communication on email. Like, it's something that I've committed to. So john@eofire.com. You can shoot me a message. It'll get to me for sure. And I do respond to my emails in a fairly timely manner because I just enjoy interacting with people that have questions about entrepreneurship, that have enjoyed the show or whatever. And, to your other question about podcasting, we actually even have a free podcasting course I would recommend people checking out if they just even have any inkling of interest in podcasting. And it's called freepodcastcourse.com. Head over to that URL, sign up for free, and enjoy the 15-day tutorial that will turn you into a machine when it comes to creating, growing, and monetizing your podcast. And otherwise, we have some incredibly awesome free courses over at EOFire.com. We have another free course on webinars, on goal setting, and on funnels. So any of those things interest you, we have a free course on those over at EOFire.com.
And that it was freepodcastcourse.com?
That's it.
Okay, perfect. Well, we'll put links to that in the show notes and everything else as well. And, John, I tell you what, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you coming on the show. I know how busy you are. I know how many things you got going on. And you've got this new mastery journal that's coming out, and I know it's going to change the lives of a lot of people. And, the people that read it, obviously, maybe the people that's not read it, but go through it, the people that it's gifted to. But I want to go back in just real quick, maybe a couple minutes, on that Pencils of Promise, because it's going to make a difference in the lives of those folks that we may never see who they are, what they've got going on, but that is powerful stuff. And if you could just wrap it up and just close it down with talking about that organization.
So Pencils of Promise is just a great organization. I just love when I see what Mark Zuckerberg and Google's doing with the world. They're bringing Wi-Fi. They're bringing internet to the world. So now that there's internet that's going to be available to the world, now we have to find a way, hey, how can we educate the world so people can use that internet and that opportunity, that connection to the world in an amazing way? Because, who knows where the person right now is going to develop a cure for AIDS or for cancer or for any other of those things. And if we can give them the gift of education, like we're at least gifting them that opportunity, which is so exciting. And that's what Pencils of Promise does. They just go into developing very rural, very struggling countries that just have really no ability to even create a structure for any kind of a schoolhouse, and they come in and they build the school, they train the teachers, and they just leave this fully functioning basically school community behind that's going to last for hundreds and hopefully thousands of years afterwards. And again, we do a portion of every single sale from Freedom Journal goes to Pencils of Promise. And every time we hit a funding goal with the Mastery Journal, we're going to be doing the exact same thing. We're going to be writing checks to Pencils of Promise, which we're just really fired up and excited about. So if anybody wants to check out what's going on with that and more, again, this is live now. It's a Kickstarter campaign over at themasteryjournal.com. Again, a killer video. Everything was shot here on site at my home in Puerto Rico. It's a beautiful video with some backdrops of the Caribbean, some really cool scenes, and some great video describing what the Mastery Journal is. Some great details and pictures of the inside of the Mastery Journal. We even have a gift for people that go check it out, which you'll see when you get on over there. But that is all waiting for you at themasteryjournal.com. And this Kickstarter campaign is running through February 24th of 2017. So whenever you're listening to this, head on over there. And if it's after the 24th of 2017, guess what? Themasteryjournal.com will be turned into an amazing website where you can learn more about the Mastery Journal and place your order there as well.
Well, JLD, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I've got a just crazy amount of notes I've been taking and voraciously writing everything down. And so I look forward to going back through and reviewing my notes, getting it all updated on the site. And thanks for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Doug. And I hope your listeners are prepared to ignite.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And speaking of that, tune in on Saturdays to Ambitious Radio, where we interview thought leaders and exciting entrepreneurs changing the faces of their organizations. Remember, you can make money or you can make excuses, but you cannot make both. So go out there and be ambitious.
Thank you for listening to the Ambitious Radio Network, hosted by serial entrepreneur Doug Parker. Join us weekly as we have engaging conversations with ambitious entrepreneurs and thought leaders on topics that can be applied immediately after listening. Like what you've heard? Listen to other interviews at ambitiousradio.com or subscribe on iTunes.